Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of SkepTalk. And I am here today with Aron Adair. Is that right?
Oh, it is. Let me check. Yeah, it feels like me.
I often get asked on social media, are you the real Aron Ra? And I can only say, well, how can I really know? So how are all things in your merry world?
Not too bad, not too bad. Busy with normal work. Had some good publishing success in the last few weeks. So much so that I can't even speak about it, apparently. I mean, the fact I can't use my tongue is what's wrong here. I guess I need a little bit more caffeine, if you'll excuse me.
All right.
Okay, we're good. All right.
Okay. So we have a call already, and it seems that you recognize this caller. What can you tell me before we pick up the phone?
So he's a repeat caller. I think I've chatted with him about a half dozen times, including last SkepTalk with when Erica and I were on. So Steve here is well known for finding some really maybe kind of weird esoteric science thing and trying to find the most outlandish interpretation of it as, oh, this must be aliens, or hey, this must be simulation, or that sort of thing. So this has been the game of ball we've been playing for several months.
Okay, I'm going to pick up the phone, and we're talking with Steve.
Yeah, hi, Aron and Aron. Yeah,
Aron?
Thanks for allowing me this opportunity to present evidence. The fast radio burst designated as FRB 2024-0209A are artificially generated radio beams used in propelling an ancient alien starship's light cells, rather than these FRBs like signals coming from a magnetar or another natural object such as a collapsing white star or from a pair of merging neutron stars. So are you guys familiar with FRBs? I'm guessing Aron probably knows a little bit about these.
Well, he's the physicist. I mean, I don't get a lot of this in taxonomy. So how did you ascertain that these radio bursts were artificially generated?
Yeah, so the source of FRB 2024-0209A has been pinpointed to the distant edge of an ancient galaxy where magnetars
as
no
opposed
longer
to a new
exist.
One? Okay.
And then since February 2024, this particular FRB has been detected reoccurring on 22 separate occasions by CHIME. And CHIME is the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment Radio Telescope. And FRB 2024-0209A recurring nature implies the signal is not caused by a rapid one-time event such as a gravitational collapse or collision of neutron stars. However, FRB 2024-0209A resonates at the optimal frequency for intergalactic light cell propulsion as proposed by astrophysicists Manasvi Lingam and Avi Loeb's research article titled Fast Radio Bursts from Intergalactic Light Cells, published in the
let me just ask a couple of questions here. Got a couple of questions here. First of all, you still haven't shown me, or you still haven't explained how you know that these radio bursts are artificially generated. And you said that they were used for that they're used for propelling ancient alien spacecraft light sails. And how do you know how these ancient aliens are in fact ancient or aliens, or how they use their light sails, or that they use light sails at all?
Well, I know they're ancient because the source of this FRB is from a galaxy that's 2 billion light years away. So if they're 2 billion light years away, that means we're seeing this happening, from 2 billion years ago. So I know they're ancient, and the frequency that this radio beam resonates happens to match almost perfectly with that as predicted by these two astrophysicists that wrote a paper about this 8 years ago.
When you say it resonates, what do you mean? Because I mean, all light
I mean,
is
it's
vibrating.
at the same
What do you mean by
Fits his
resonate?
preconceived
Yeah, it
conclusions.
vibrates, I should say. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're better with the correct technical terms, of course, Aaron, than I am. I should probably say that, yeah, they're at the same frequency as we would expect for a radio beam to power a light cell, as predicted by these two. And there's a paper on this too. So you got to take this seriously, because there's a paper written by two astrophysicists about this 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so because you mentioned the name a few times, I was able to Google it and see that, yes, there is a paper about the FRB. But I don't quite know how you get from it's at this, it's emitting light at a certain frequency, therefore it's artificial, because there's a bit of history when it comes to things like this. Are you familiar with the history of pulsars?
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah, I know what they are, right? They're, are they neutron star? What exactly is a pulsar? Is that like a neutron star, or
Yeah, it's
it
a
makes
spinning neutron star, and they
Yeah.
literally have these
fast
pulses
rotating?
of and they're
Right.
very fast spinning. They're very regular in the pulses they give. And when they were first detected, I think in the 1960s, they were called LGMs, for little green men. Somewhat tongue-in-cheek way of saying, "Hey, this looks kind of weird and interesting. I wonder if they're aliens." Though it's very tongue-in-cheek, not thinking that. And the whole reason that anyone would even think that is like, wow, this thing is so regular. It's almost like atomic clock level of precision. Does nature actually produce anything like this? Maybe we found ourselves a galactic lighthouse of some sort. Lo and behold, though, we do more science, and now we know much better what pulsars are. And nobody thinks they're alien tech littered around the universe. I don't think even folks like Avi Loeb, who you mentioned, have suggested that. So to me, my first thought is just about every time somebody jumped to it's aliens, we do more science, and it's never aliens. So saying, hey, here's a really new, bright object, I wonder if it's aliens. Given that track record, I'm going to say hold off until there's actually direct evidence, rather than could you imagine an alien using this for propulsion. And when I found the paper on it, so by the way, when I say I found the paper, the main place that physics people post their papers before it goes for like other peer review sources is called the Archives. ARXIV. The Archives is basically a preprint service, so you can actually go and read physics and science papers for the grand price of $0. The way science should be, I really feel. So I basically typed into Google, found this, and then it took me to the archive page where there's a submission from October of just last year. And one of the things they note here is that the star that seems to have formed this fast radio burst is something like 11 solar masses. That's a pretty hefty thing to use just to use, push a light sail. Think if aliens are able to control a star of that sort of mass, they'd be using a bit more sophisticated tech than solar sail, because I don't know about you, but sailing is kind of slow. Space is even bigger than the ocean. And if you tell me it's going to take several weeks to cross the ocean, I am bored to hell. If you're going to tell me, oh, it's going to take millennia to get to the next star system by solar sail, I'm not getting on that boat. That's basically what you're saying these ancient folks would be doing. So at the very least, it's not the ancient aliens I would hang out with.
Yeah, my issue with the whole presentation,
multi-generational.
My issue with the whole presentation is your assumption that these are artificially generated. Somehow you just know that. And why are they artificially generated? Because they're being used in this alien starship's light sail system. They're artificially generated for that purpose. Well, how do you know the purpose? When really, you don't know anything. You've got, oh, there's a beam. There's a signal. There's a whatever. and we get all kinds of signals from all kinds of things. But this one, is being used on a '68 Chevy with a squeaky front brake. Somehow all of that.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that these fast radio bursts are all over the universe. Well, I understand it's not your idea, but here's the thing. We need to look at what's the plausibility of it, because here's the thing. Fast radio bursts we actually see throughout the universe. They're not just coming from this one place. They're scattered out, which suggests, hey, what's causing them seems to be natural, because they're commonly found in nature. So to jump to artificiality seems to go well beyond anything we can prove.
Okay, but this ancient galaxy doesn't have new star formation. There are no magnetars where the source of the signal's coming from, because those magnetars, as I understand, tend to form in a younger galaxy. This
could happen,
and it's not at the center or near the center of the galaxy where magnetars are. This is at the very edge, like. You're talking like 150,000 light years from the center of a galaxy where magnetars aren't known to likely exist. So if it's not a magnetar,
now I have to admit, when it comes to fast radio bursts, this is definitely not my area of research. So I have to come at this as a total non-expert. But my understanding is what fast radio bursts are, like what's the cause of them, is actually still an area of active pursuit. So we don't actually know what model best explains them, or even if there is just one model. So just to give an example of the state of science, if we go back in time, if it were the year 1604, you looked into the sky and all of a sudden there's a new star, because we now understand, stars can explode and create what we would call nova, literally the word for new. And we did not know what was causing it, and that there's actually a different variety of kinds of explosions of stars. So we got nova, we got supernova, we have multiple types of each of those, and we've only discovered that and realized there isn't one model to explain all exploding stars. I would say, hey, this brand new thing that we've only known about for a matter of, I don't even know how many years, maybe a decade, these fast radio bursts. We're just barely beginning to even model them, and there's no reason to assume we've got it all figured out and we know what all of them are going to be, especially the repeating ones. So to say it can't be a magnetar is not even halfway to an argument for artificiality. It's, hey, we don't really know what these things are. We need to do a whole lot more science, and if we jump to the aliens thing, it's going to look just like the same sort of thing for anyone saying aliens for pulsars 50, 60 years ago. It would have been the exact same logic. I don't know what it is. It looks kind of weird. I bet it's aliens. We do more science. Nope, it's something that totally forms naturally, and we could do lots of cool science with them. So that's my initial thought. It's like, we can't just say, we don't know what's causing it, therefore aliens.
Well, what about the fact that they detected this 22 times, so it's not a one-time, one-off event like you'd expect from like a collision of neutron stars or some gravitational collapse.
That is probably not a collision of neutron stars, but we just don't know what the exact mechanism is. Again, this is an area of active research where nobody thinks we know exactly how all fast radio bursts work.
Okay, so if we don't know a natural explanation, then this has got to be an extraterrestrial techno.
No. That is a complete logical fallacy. I don't know what it is, therefore aliens. That is completely fallacious.
I don't know, I know.
Therefore I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only explanation
like
we
Carl
have.
Sagan was talking about how.
No, we got lots of explanations. It could be, hey, maybe there's new physics going on. Hey, maybe there are different sorts of explosions that can happen on the surface of stars that can give a similar look to star collisions. It's basically, hey, there's just a lot of interesting stuff happening out in space that we need to figure out. And what we don't have is the evidence of any extraterrestrials, let alone ones 2 billion years in the past who have figured out light sails and are using something the mass of our sun 11 times over to keep exploding multiple times a year to push their sail in a direction that will still be painfully slow in the cosmic sense. Because again, it will be millennia to get wherever they're going. And
but that was 2 billion years ago.
Than a hydrogen propulsion right? I mean, that would still be faster. If it takes a
Again,
millennium
that's
to
just
get,
straight up speculation. You got no evidence for that. You can't infer all of their technology from, hey, I don't know what caused that big light in the sky. Again, it'd be the exact same situation if you were in the 1960s and you discovered your first pulsar. You don't know what it is. The timing looks amazingly regular, and you jump to aliens. You would be wrong if you did that, and the same sort of logic is applying here. You don't know what this is, and you can come up with an artificial explanation for it, but really the better explanation is we don't know yet. Let's keep doing science.
And it happened 2 million years ago, and they're still
what
not
about
here.
the JWT? Yeah, the James Webb Telescope should take a look at this and see. And they need to investigate this more. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but in time,
But you did.
I think they're going to find.
You literally did. You called in with your conclusion. You, the jumpiest jumper that ever jumped. Come on, Steve.
You jumped to a whole bunch of conclusions. They were artificially generated. They were artificially generated by this sort of a civilization, and they were artificially generated by this sort of a civilization for specifically this purpose in this type of technology. All of those conclusions you jumped to at once.
Well, I think we need to investigate this before they find my conclusion. Yes.
Well, wouldn't it be better to wait until the investigation than reach the conclusion? I can think of less than ideal politicians who just jump to conclusions before having any evidence, and I don't think you want to be like that.
Carl Sagan did a nice little thought experiment on this. Carl Sagan was talking about how people first looking at Venus, and they can't see any details on Venus at all because of the thick cloud cover. Well, if there's thick cloud cover, well, then it must be hot and humid and all of that. And if it's humid, there's probably a jungle type environment. And if there's a jungle type environment, then it's a pristine primal kind of a forest. Maybe it has dinosaurs in it. So, yeah. So the observation was couldn't see a thing. Conclusion: dinosaurs. And that's what you've just given us.
Well, I just think it's very odd that this is at the same frequency as predicted in this paper by Avi Loeb and forget the other guy's name. 8 years ago.
I should also point out, Avi Loeb has now a bit of a history of jumping on every single alien bandwagon he can find, including inventing new bandwagons to hop on and then have it fly out right off the road into the ocean. He literally thought that we found debris from an ancient alien craft off the coast of Australia, if I remember correctly, thinking that we actually got like artifacts from interstellar space, and we found out it was probably industrial sludge.
Oh, well.
So I'm just saying that's his track record, unfortunately.
Well, it only takes
he also thought when
right.
Oumuamua came, the first interstellar asteroid that came through our solar system, he hopped on that and said, "Oh, this must be a solar sail." And then everyone else was like, "That seems like the least like you hit the target just because you threw enough darts. You hit the target just because you threw enough darts."
Yep.
By the way, Avi Loeb is not the same person as the crazy hair guy. That's Giorgio Tsoukalos, who totally different camps in the sense that Avi Loeb was at Harvard in the astrophysics department. Clearly a better astronomer than me, because I can walk to Harvard, I can't be at Harvard. Tsoukalos has a degree in sports communications and doesn't know shit about archaeology, and yet will tell everyone how the pyramids were really built.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize he had such a interesting history then, but I mean, I'm not going to begrudge him for being wrong. That's the thing about science. You like to be proven wrong. You want to know the truth.
Yeah.
So.
The thing is, though. Oh, here's the thing. Can I give you a little bit of personal history?
Okay.
When I was an undergraduate, I actually did some professional alien hunting. In that, I did a summer internship at the SETI Institute out in California. And
did you find any professional aliens?
Not that I can tell you. No, but one of the things I did get to do was actually use their radio telescope array, and I was doing my own observations with it. And they have a bank of computers that are constantly looking for any possible artificial signals while I'm doing that. So some passive alien hunting along the way. And I'm there, and working with the radio astronomers that are part of that. I'm meeting some of the famous folks that live there or work there. I had one quick meeting with Frank Drake while he was still alive. Jill Tarter I met a couple of times. And strangely enough, like years later, and I was at a conference and she was speaking, she recognized me. So one, I'm surprised I'm recognizable. Two, she's sharp as a tack. So never get into argument with her unless you want to get beaten down, because she knows her stuff so well. I bring that up because Jill Tarter is like one of the most prominent figures in the hunt for extraterrestrial intelligence. She, like back in the 70s, like went down that and took that as the direction of her career, and has been trying to professionally look for evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. And in a Zoom call that was like this big chat about this, and talking with Avi Loeb about how to responsibly do this, Loeb is basically shouting and talking over her. Basically, the person who's done more science for trying to find aliens than anyone else, and saying that she doesn't know what she's doing, that she doesn't actually actively try to do the stuff, that only he is doing this sort of thing, that this has been his work and it's all been him. It's just cringe. And I did not expect to ever see that from a Harvard astronomer saying that to someone of such prominence and also of such caution, because guess what? Jill Tarter doesn't go out and write a paper every week saying, I found aliens again, and having to get proven wrong again. They really care about not having any false positives at the SETI Institute, because they know just one false positive and their funding is done forever. They need to show that they will only say, we found it, once they actually have the evidence, and before then say, we're looking. And they've been doing this for years, decades actually. And that's the thing that's upsetting to me, is that folks like Loeb come along and just instantly jump to aliens and blast everyone else for not coming to their conclusion immediately, and just throw out speculation as if it's science. We need to actually gain evidence and test that rigorously before we ever say anything is even probably true, let alone chastise others for not coming to your speculation as fact.
Well, I mean, you have to further investigate this. I'm not saying this is alien, but they're aliens.
You're actually doing the line. I'm
You
not
did the
saying it's
meme.
aliens, but it's aliens. Okay, so we were very excited that we had a theist call in, and sadly, you did not call in about theism.
Well, hey, I would say that technologically advanced extraterrestrials that could go from with interplanetary space travel capabilities, or they're godlike. They'd be godlike to us. So, hey, would you guys, if they found extraterrestrial
So when you say you're a theist,
would you guys become theists?
When you say you're a theist, you're actually saying that you don't believe in a god. You believe in aliens, godlike aliens.
I believe in extraterrestrial intelligence. I do not believe the omni-god does not exist. I mean, that's obvious. I mean,
okay, so you're not a theist.
Answer. Not in a traditional sense, no. I wouldn't be.
Okay.
And I know the omni-god doesn't exist. I mean, just logically, all the suffering of children. I mean, I get why adults suffer. They make poor life choices, but these innocent kids done nothing. They don't deserve to suffer. What kind of powerful, loving, caring God would let them suffer? None. There is none.
Well, yeah, I always had a problem with believers saying that God knows everything, sees everything, does everything. Nothing happens without God's permission. Permission, right? So when a child is raped,
he's not very benevolent. He's not benevolent, and I mean, he can't be all omni. That's just contradictory logically. But hey, it's good talking with you guys. Hope you guys, Dustin, you guys have other calls. So,
all right. Well, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and
thank you.
Go ahead and let you go. Okay, so I'm going to make some announcements on the upcoming shows. Let me see where we go. Okay, so we have tomorrow is Elisa Lube and Eve Was Framed on Chewed Gum. That's at 6 p.m. Central Time. All times are Central Time because we are the center of everything here in Texas. And then we have the Hang Up on Wednesday at 6 p.m. And then the Transatlantic Call-In Show is at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Then the next thing coming up is next Sunday. We have the Sunday show with Matt Dillahunty. And then on Monday, next week's SkepTalk is Forrest Valkai and Roxanne. And I'm trying not to sing that in an annoying way. And do you have anything else to talk about there, Aron?
Well, let's see here. I've been trying
Because
to
I
do
don't
some
have another
actual
caller.
science.
I don't have
Yeah.
another caller here, so we can talk to each other, or we can scan the chat.
Mm-hmm. I'll mention something fun I did in terms of other papers I'm currently working on. I just submitted a paper in biblical studies where I'm calling a famous, influential apologist from the 2nd century. I don't say this in the paper, but I think the short way of saying this person is a lying liar who lies. But he does it with philosophy, so it's okay.
I get that.
It's actually,
it's funny on the caller situation. I always do these little promotions, these little announcements. I mean, people on social media are always, telling me what a coward I am, that I'm running from them. Okay, well, I'm here. Call me. You think I'm a coward? You think I'm afraid of you? You think I'm hiding? Well, where can I go? I'm on a call-in show. Call me. But all these people want to pretend that I'm such a coward and I'm so fearful. Ooh. They don't call.
Yeah. Though apparently, according to the poll we have, at least a few people said that they were theists and willing to call in to defend themselves. So you said so. Call in and give your best reckoning for why we should believe you. That's the big part of this call. This part of the show. Here for SkepTalk, we talk science, we talk God, we talk people trying to use science to prove God, or somehow science needs God, or all those sorts of related claims. We're here for it. Call in. If you think you can defend it, let the Aron and Aron team take care of it. I guess we are the A team.
Yeah. The AA and A team.
The A team.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's a little annoying that they don't do this, because there's so many of these people. When I see these videos of these apologists, I want to have a two-way dialogue with them, because I mean, what happens when I type out a question, there's no answer. It's so much you can hold somebody more accountable when they're in an interaction like this. If I ask a question and I can keep asking the question, I keep dodging, but I keep asking the question, people are going to notice that, hey, why don't you answer the fucking question? But they can't, they won't, whatever. I'm working on a rebuttal right now to this one guy who says that he has debunked evolution twice in 9 minutes. And his debunking, you ready for this? Step 1, nobody knows how life started, and 2, the Bible says otherwise. That's his debunking.
I'm convinced.
Yeah, this is what we're facing all the time. I listened to you explain to this other guy bits about the scientific process and how you approach these kinds of things. When you may like this extraterrestrial idea a whole lot, but we can't, in science, you can't say things are true if you don't have positive indications that point to that. Even if there's a possibility, if it's something that's really controversial, we still have to allow that, there's only that's just one out of 15 other, potentially more viable hypotheses, right? For ambiguous data. And that's just of the ones we already know of. We may find later that there's a whole bunch of other things that we never even considered. So, jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Not to mention, we want that stuff to be verified independently as well, because I might do a huge amount of data analysis and think I got like super strong evidence for some new particle, and somebody else tries it out and realizes, hey, I think you missed a factor of 2 there. Whoops.
One way to put this for to get people to understand is religious believers, the apologists, preachers, their whole job is to affirm belief, right? So they make these assertions. They just state these things as a matter of fact, and you're just supposed to believe it because they said so. But then if this was science, then somebody comes in and said, well, no, you said, like this guy I was just talking about, he said that that the reason that the theory of evolution was invented was in order to dispute God. It was in order to challenge God and creation. That was the motivation for forming the theory of evolution. Despite the fact that every one of the pioneers, well, almost every one of the pioneers of evolutionary theory were Christians. So that obviously, and Darwin was a Christian himself when he figured out how these working mechanisms. So we know that's not the case. So when you say something is true, and then somebody else comes along and says, "Well, no, that's not true," and you had no basis for saying that in the first place, that makes you a liar, and you lose all credibility. And in science, you're done. Nobody's going to listen to you ever again. That's what it should be, right?
Mm-hmm. Like we said in the previous call, your reputation matters, and if you're someone who is, speculating the livelong day, you probably don't have scientific conclusions to listen to. And if you're a liar, it's not even worth listening to you because, actually, I should take that back. If you are a consistent liar, you might be a good parameter for truth because just whatever you say, I'll just take the opposite, and that'll put me in the right direction. It's the bullshitter. That's the biggest problem because you don't know which way the wind is pointing with the bullshitter.
Yeah. All right, we do have another call, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this up. We have Rastaman in Mexico.
Aron and Aron.
Thank you much.
Good evening.
Can y'all hear me okay? Yay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm calling about determinism and consciousness. Assuming both of y'all are pretty much, determinists, maybe hard determinism. And just
if you're taking the stance that determinism means that this is the only way it could have worked, and if we went back in time and changed something, it would still end up this way.
Sure.
That I would have to disagrray with that. I'm not determinist in that respect. There are aspects of natural selection that we can see. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Aron. And that's why it's good to have you both with both of your studies and expertise. Is there a determinism plus quantum probabilities, something like that? So I don't know if that takes me into the realm of compatibilism, which Dennett and compatibilism kind of rubs me the wrong way. But say like Sam Harris and Sapolsky, both of them I think maybe on the same wavelength as far as hard determinism with some type of quote unquote randomness. And that's kind of like where I am. So I think if you could go back and play things back from far enough back, may have different outcomes. And I'm just starting to think about this. So I just kind of want to pick both of y'all's brains first and then go away and study a little more and then maybe come back with some more pointed questions. Can I ask Aron real quick about maybe more of the physics and neurology might be for both of y'all, but yeah, the effects that I know it's going to be minimal, but any quote unquote random probabilistic effects from at the quantum level or any other kind of atomic decay. What I'm trying to think about is, say, at the subatomic level, you get something affected, and then you kind of, quote unquote, I guess, for lack of a better term, bubble up to the hierarchy from subatomic to atoms and, say, neurotransmitters to their molecules, and then to the synapses or neurons.
Right. So if you want to talk about, in some ways, it was kind of an open question. To what extent is quantum mechanics a part of how our brain works? And I have to say there's also the issue of how much is quantum randomness actually then responsible for our consciousness? Because here's the thing. We use quantum mechanics to build, it's part of our construction of microprocessors. Like fundamentally, the transistors in our computers is built from the foundations of quantum mechanics. So you have the energy levels that we understand from quantum mechanics and the ability to jump between those energy levels, and then band theory, and then doping in the different kinds of silicon there to have all the stuff that goes into basically creating really fast, tiny switches to become on-off switches for our computer to work. And even though quantum mechanics is so much a part of that, fundamentally, a computer program is deterministic. So you can still actually get something deterministic, even if the fundamental background is quantum and wiggly and has that randomness element to it. So
Right.
my thought is, even if quantum mechanics is something to do with our brains, it doesn't necessarily give us an out from determinism.
Right. I'm an electrical engineer, and back in college a few decades ago, had a course in semiconductor physics. So then we studied all the doping and NP and PNP type transistors, and then down to electronic valence, that sort of level. But I think this is before. I'm sure the courses now may include something quanta in it. So I'm still back in traditional semiconductor physics, but I still have the mindset where I have that foundation where I can delve deeper into that. If you think that's you're saying just anything built silicon, with logic digital system is going to be deterministic, or what was your final take on that? How are those affected by quantum foam, let's say? A bit flip. I mean, can a bit flip after trillions?
Yeah. Again, the question is, to what extent do bit flips actually happen in brains? Because again, in a computer system, you have all sorts of noise, electronic noise, and that we have error correcting code actively running in our computers, so they're not constantly just turning into blue screens of death.
That's right.
So to what extent are there error correction codes in the way our brains work? I have no idea. I don't know near enough neurology to even begin to answer that question. And it seems like that would also, it depends how robust is our brain to, basically being kicked at the quantum level.
That's right. And I didn't think much. Like I said, I'm just on the basic level right now, and going to start drilling down. And that point there about potential error correction in our wetware takes me more drill down first into neurology and study a little bit more about the larger scale subsystem, let's say. So that really helped. If I may quickly, my next questions. Let's just take hard determinism and maybe the current actions of the brain. And I'm just wondering, is there any? Let's start with humans. And I was going to ask Aron about maybe in primates and below, but with the humans and our consciousness, we assume hard determinism per se. Is consciousness even necessary for us to function the same way with subconscious decision making and deterministic processes? What's the purpose of consciousness at all?
What's the purpose of consciousness to what particular application? You were talking about making certain types of decisions?
Well, let's just say if after listening to Harris and Sapolsky and all talk about hard determinism, and I'm kind of getting the idea that a human consciousness or my consciousness, it's after the fact, kind of give me a replay of what's going on or a projection of what's going on. If we just take human consciousness out of it, say, is my consciousness necessary for me to function the exact same way with hard determinism? Am I asking this the wrong way? I'm not making any conscious. I'm not affecting anything with my conscience. It's all done under the covers, right? Chemically, electromechanically.
As I understand it, even microbes, my understanding of consciousness is that some trace amount of consciousness even exists in unicellular microbes that don't have any neurons. So, in order for them to function at all, they have some concept of where they are, what they're doing. If they're surrounded by a predator, they're going to respond. There's the stimulus response thing. There's the fight or flight mode when they're under attack or entrapment or what have you. it's hard for me to imagine the question you're asking. What is the purpose of consciousness in a human being? Which is going to be so much more. The example I just gave you, consciousness is already inextricable from that. From a protist, or not. A protozoan has consciousness, and you're asking me what is the value of something that says everything we do is hugely contingent on our consciousness, and you're asking me what is the value of it? The question doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, because I'm such a noob here. I'm sorry, I'm probably asking it wrongly. Let me just change it over to free will, which I think there's absolutely no free will at all. And so, say I have no free will. Is there any purpose to have my consciousness? Does my consciousness serve any purpose other than show me what's going on and give me a free ride? Does that help? Or
is there when you're asking about purpose to what? To you?
That's kind of what I'm asking. I don't see any reason, any purpose for our consciousness other than, hey, this is a nice gee whiz factor. I can actually kind of witness what's going on, but I don't even think a consciousness.
Are you talking about purpose in the concept? I mean, because believers are all about purpose-driven life and all of that. They want to imagine that they were created for a purpose, not their purpose, but some external purpose, and that everything happens is because some external observer or orchestrator wanted some hidden purpose for that to be. Is that the kind of question you're asking me about? What is the purpose of consciousness? Because otherwise, purpose is just up to you to decide.
Absolutely not. Thanks for pointing that out, Aron. I meant functionally necessary. I should be more precise with my wording. My conscious. I'm not okay. Let me take purpose out of it because I don't. I'm a hard determinist. So, an atheist and nihilist, I guess. So, is there any function, any necessity for humans to have consciousness? Does that change?
So, as I said a moment ago, if we have protozoans the simplest forms of life still rely to some degree on consciousness, and everything we do consciously depends on our consciousness. So again,
I think part of the confusion might be that when he's talking about consciousness, he might be talking about self-awareness, that we can be aware of our own thought process. And I don't think amoebas necessarily have that. Okay.
And it goes all the way down the evolutionary ladder, I guess, because if no organisms have free will, including us, primate mammals. Self-awareness. And I was just wondering, is there any? The self-awareness is a gee whiz factor. I'd rather have it than not. But I'm wondering, functionally, if my self-awareness wasn't there, determinism, no free will, would I function the same way?
So to think about this, I want to bring up a thought experiment that some people try to use to actually prove physicalism is wrong, but I think it's kind of the opposite. But have you ever heard of the philosophical zombie?
The idealists usually propose that. I'm not sure. Tell me a little bit about that. Philosophical zombie?
I believe, a philosophical zombie. So I think the idea came up from David Chalmers, who's a philosopher of mind, and has this thought experiment of a person who seems to act in every sort of way externally that seems identical to a normal person, but internally they have no internal worldview. They don't have any internal sense of consciousness. They're just an automaton. And the argument is, can such a thing exist? Can you have a person who acts all the ways that you expect a human to do and do all the things that humans do externally, but internally there's nothing going on. There's no internal world going on like there is in your first person point of view. And Chalmers argues
and I haven't heard
that. So Chalmers argues that is conceivable, and then that's actually an argument against physicalism. My thought is, I can't imagine a person who isn't conscious but acts in every single way that's otherwise identical. If you could somehow deactivate self-awareness and consciousness in me, I'm pretty sure my behavior would noticeably change. I have a hard time imagining it couldn't be the same. So I take the
I'm not
exact
surprised
opposite.
that you say that.
Compatibilism, I think.
I'm not
That's kind of like
surprised that you
Dennett
say
and
this is a
compatible.
Ballmer's
Not that he's
argument.
addressed that.
In order to function,
Aaron, did you?
in order to
Oh, go ahead.
in order to be this kind of the example that they're talking about, you have to interact with people. You have to be able to communicate with people. You have to be able to understand what they're saying, and you have to be able to respond intelligibly, right? With accurate information.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. I don't think that matters with determinism and lack of free will. You're still going to use your senses, your IO.
The issue with lack of free will, which you keep bringing up
my
over and over again,
consciousness, if I don't have free
want to
will,
talk
how
about
am I
that.
affecting anything?
What does lack of free will mean to you?
More, just
Or what does free will mean to you?
machine.
That helps it.
It's more of a physicalist take. Well, free will to me, well, it doesn't exist. So free will to me, free will does not exist at all.
The way you
So
keep saying that, and I mean the way you keep saying that implies that there's some sort of physical or philosophical problem for you in the whole thing about free will. I mean, we understand from my understanding. I would have thought that I have free will, that I have the ability to make decisions, but I realize that the decisions that I make are going to be influenced by whether I make a certain decision or the reason why I make a certain decision, especially with certain impetus. A given argument will compel me to respond a particular way. I will take certain actions if it's presented to me the right way because of my conditioning, because of my upbringing, because of my genetics, because of my ethnicity, whatever. There's a number of factors in how in nature and nurture and all that have almost would make me somewhat predictable in what type of decision I'm going to make given a certain stimulus to do that. That's what I'm thinking of when I think of that we don't really have free will. We're not 100% able to make our own decisions without influence of our genetics and our background and our upbringing and our emotions and so on. That makes us somewhat predictable.
Yeah, I'm with you on that,
so,
Aron. And you can be a determinist and be predictable.
The complaint that we don't have free will, therefore, is not a complaint.
Again, I'm just now kind of starting to get into it all after I really found out that I'm totally hard determinist. Plus,
so I've heard a lot of theists recently arguing that if you don't have free will, then that just makes you a robot that can't be held accountable for your actions. That's completely wrong. There's no truth to that.
That's totally another discussion about morality and ethics. Yep, and that's where Dennett and Kaku and all get off track when they're debating free will versus determinism. I say the first one that goes off into the morals and ethics and legal systems is the one that loses, because that's a different discussion, whether you're a robot or not.
Well, I think, though, there is a relevance to that, because there is a context where even on total determinism, we can still talk about free will in the following sort of way. If you go and sign a piece of paper that says you're going to give me all of your money, one might ask the question, did you do that on your own free will, or did someone point a gun to your head and said you're going to sign this piece of paper and hand over all your money? Those two situations are so clearly different to us, and the difference there is duress or not duress. In one of those cases, we'd say that person decided to do that on their own free will. So there is a context where we can talk about free will even completely in a deterministic universe.
Sure, and I've heard arguments similar to that, and they're interesting thought experiments as well. And
this is beyond a thought experiment. This is just like the difference between what people are going to do and how we're going to actually function as people with each other. Because if we say there's no free will and there is no fundamental difference between the person deciding on their own to do a thing and the person who is compelled by force, then I think we allow philosophy to then take us so far off the road to be bamboozled. We still need to make sure that the words we use are precise, but also track with the world that we're trying to actually describe. And I think there isn't a necessary conflict between free will and determinism when you realize what we mean by free will isn't, oh, something that breaks the laws of physics. It just basically means your decisions are not basically coerced, that you have some sort of internal self-regulation. In the same sort of way, also, I would say I have more free will as an adult male than I did when I was a 2-year-old. I have, I hope, a little more impulse control than I did at the age of 2. My parents could probably verify my lack of impulse control at that age. I can get them on the phone if we want to verify that. So I'm saying this is an example then of an adult having some capacity that a child doesn't have. And similarly, if I have a few too many drinks, maybe my impulse control has been reduced and I do things I wouldn't do otherwise. Then you might say, oh, then if you have less such control, that seems like less free will. You have less control over your statements and actions and things like that. So to me, it seems like we can talk about free will and having it and not having it, even though fundamentally everything is physics and chemistry.
Yeah, definitely. Prefrontal cortex playing a big part as one's mature and get a more, I guess, well-behaved system, like you're talking about. Yeah, and thanks for Aaron for pointing out that keeping the language precise and careful is very important because I'm trying to stay on the scientific side of things. The philosophy is interesting to me, but you both know how you kind of get dragged into the nebulous cloud of philosophy. But I'm really trying to focus on prefrontal cortices and neurotransmitters and yeah, thanks guys. Like I said, my language isn't precise yet, so this is going to help so much in me getting to the kind of next phase and study and thought for this. One last thing, if I can, I just think, and I'll study. Was it Aaron? Was it Chalmers with Chalmers with about philosophical?
Yes, I think you spelled it right. Yeah, David Chalmers. He's been out.
So that's going to be my next step to look at that.
Yeah. If memory serves,
philosophical zombie
at this longer than I've been alive, so he knows a thing or two, even if I don't agree with him.
No, and I'm more of a physicalist, but anything that I like when it gets down into philosophy like that. Disagreement. That are
right. If
pretty
you
close
want to
together
focus,
helpful to me.
Yeah, I have not read too much by them, but I would also recommend the philosopher and neuroscientist Patricia Churchland. She's
I heard the name, but I haven't looked at Churchland, right? I think Sam Harris has mentioned her name.
Yeah. She's
I did an interview with Patricia Churchland, and we talked about David Chalmers during that interview.
Ooh.
Okay. Excellent. So, yeah, I'll look into that kind of philosophical zombie, and that's kind of what I'm thinking, just my own noob thoughts right now. And the more I kind of lean towards this philosophical zombie take, the hard problem of consciousness pretty much goes away because so much less functionality is part of our self-awareness. If we're lacking free will, if it's hard determinism, there's no hard problem of consciousness to me. So
there's no hard problem of consciousness because it's a fundamental flaw in his presentation. Chalmers had the idea that you have no consciousness until you have so many neurons, and then suddenly you have 100% consciousness. From 0 to 100, it's a flip of a switch when you reach a certain magic number of neurons. When, as we discovered, or as we discussed earlier, there's trace amounts. Consciousness is more of a dial than a switch. So you have just trace amounts of consciousness, and then you have you are more and more conscious of your surrounding. So that's why the hard problem isn't a hard problem.
That's the way I'm leaning. All right, guys. Excellent. Thanks for putting up with my kind of nebulous my knowledge here.
No worries.
But like I did at the beginning, I kind of wanted to get a foundation and some references, Chalmers and Churchland and a few other terms. This really, really helps out a lot. And hopefully I'll call back in a few months or something and with some
Thank you much.
More pointed questions. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, we have 4 callers now, and I'll be and still no theists. Let me scream through. Well, we have a Buddhist. That doesn't mean theist, but it's as close as we're going to get. So I'm going to jump to the Buddhist first. So we are talking with Elliot.
Hello, sir.
Hello, how do you do?
Hello? Good. Yes, Buddhism is a non-theistic tradition. So it's not atheist necessarily, well, I guess depending on who you ask. It's not
I have
theistic,
encountered
so
I have encountered Theravada Buddhists who tell me that that they pray to Buddha and that Buddha responds with miracles. But I'm not going to hold all Buddhists to the standard of that guy.
Yeah. I will say though
That
that
guy, okay.
the book I have been exploring has plenty. Kong is known in Japan as Son Goku, and yes, that's where Goku from Dragon Ball comes from.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Dragon Ball Z very much, but are we still talking about creation? Are you guys talking about the difference between theism and is creationism the superior model of reality? And are you guys atheists?
We are atheists, yes.
Very much.
Do you think atheism is a reaction to theism, or do you feel like it stands on its own ground?
I think that atheism would be there would be no discussion of atheism were there not theism. Everybody would be an atheist, and there would be no point. There would be no point in telling people that you don't believe in zombies, you don't believe in werewolves, you don't believe in that we don't believe in gods. There would be no point in saying that.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been noticing about the so-called atheists or the scientists is that, like, for instance, the Big Bang still has an idea of creation, this idea of nothingness or something like that, and then everything coming from nothing, and those kind of ideas, which to me are kind of theistic.
I wish I knew where that idea came from, because I don't know anybody that holds that idea. The idea that every model of cosmogony I've ever seen, and I think I've said this every single time I've been on this show, ever. I will probably always say it every single episode I'm ever on. Every model of cosmogony I've ever seen has begins with a singularity, not nothing. It begins with something.
Right.
And then there was cosmic inflation had a beginning, but the universe itself did not. The first law of thermodynamics, matter or material energy cannot be created or destroyed, so it wasn't. Now, I have seen one model where the singularity is preceded by an earlier version of the universe, which kind of collapses into the singularity and then reinflates from that. I don't really care about
what
all
is
that.
single. But what is single? Like what is the reference to singularity as opposed to? It seems like Buddhism is a non-dual tradition, meaning it's not two different things. But then there's also the question of what is singular, like what is one, and the middle way reasoning goes into that. So it talks about different types of extremes. One extreme is, for instance, nothingness. And another is the idea that there's something there. And if you look at things like the Heart Sutra, they provide a pretty compelling understanding of phenomena where there's some sense of solidity and some sense of appearance, that things appear such as like a rainbow, but that also the rainbow isn't solid. So that's kind of the Buddhist presentation of reality, is that things are there, but they're not solid, or they're not as they appear to be. And there's not really an emphasis on a moment of genesis necessarily. It's more causes and conditions coming together, and when the causes and conditions are present for something to appear the way it is, it will be there. And when the causes and conditions are not there, the thing won't appear in that way. So it's kind of more of a realist point of view rather than a science fiction point of view or a theism point of view. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's a different model of reality. So I just think a lot of people are under the impression there's only two options, but there's a third option. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in.
No, I'm not sure what the third option is. When you mention rainbows,
no
for example,
beginning, like no beginning and no end, and no singularity or no duality. There's no beginning to things, and there's no end to anything.
Singularity is not contrasted with duality.
Yeah, there's a terminology thing here. And particularly the singularity is basically if you project back the universe, go back in time and go back to time zero, then you get the universe going to size zero. And that's the singularity issue. What it's basically is when you end up dividing by zero and your equation explodes. That's what happens at singularities in the mathematical sense. And that's what the most direct interpretation of general relativity would suggest for the early times of the universe. Now, the vast majority of physicists don't think that works because it doesn't account for quantum mechanics at all. So there probably wasn't even that singularity. There wasn't that divide by zero at the beginning of time.
Right, but time is relative, so how could it have a beginning? You're going back to a theistic or non-theistic kind of duality there, aren't you? Time is relative, so it's not. There's not such a thing as ultimate time, right? That's a theistic concept. That time began.
Well, I certainly didn't say anything about ultimate time. We can still talk about before and after. And if we're talking about the whole universe, then actually that issue of relativity of observers goes away.
You're assuming the universe. You're assuming the universe exists, aren't you?
I've been able to check the universe is there. I gave it a kick this morning. It was still there.
Okay,
I'm here.
Isn't that more a relative? Yeah, you're here, but are you as you appear? Are you as solid as you appear to be? And was there a beginning of you,
even a rainbow,
or is it...
Even the rainbow that you brought up before, even that is solid.
The rainbow is solid?
Yep.
So can you cut the rainbow down with a chainsaw?
Not with a
chainsaw,
house out of it,
but
you'd need a much bigger implement because the rainbow is a reflection of ice crystals, right? The ones that you see in the sky, anyway.
You think a rainbow is solid?
The rainbow is a reflection of ice and a reflection of light through ice crystals in the sky. If you see a rainbow in the sky, that's what that is, right?
A rainbow is not solid. I don't know where you're getting that information.
What is a rainbow? You can see different types of rainbows.
Sun. It's
a water droplet.
It's things coming together. Right.
You see a rainbow in the sky. What's it made of?
It's not made of anything. It's made up of a bunch of conditions coming
reflecting
together that allow it to appear a certain way, but it's not solid. A table is considered solid.
Aaron,
a rainbow is not solid.
Okay. I think, Aaron, for the sake of precision, we know the cause of rainbows, and they're completely physical. And if you want, you can knock the physical thing out of the way.
A rainbow is physical? A rainbow is physical?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it has to be.
Oh.
It's light.
Is consciousness physical?
So consciousness seems to be is caused from brain states, but light is physical. Like the physics of light is something.
So you think consciousness is generated by the brain? You guys think consciousness is generated by the brain?
Not just by the brain. It's also generated biologically. It doesn't have to just be from neurons. But otherwise, yes, in us, primarily consciousness is generated by neurons. But not only that, not exclusively that. And yes, it is physical.
Do you guys see? Yeah, it's a bunch of things coming together, isn't it? You have to have air, you have to have a heart, you have to have intestines, you have to have food. Brain is just one of the organs, right, that allows consciousness to be the way it is.
Well, I mean,
my point is there's a different way of interpreting reality that doesn't have to be based on theism or atheism, that there's non-theism, which is
atheism is
interdependence.
Okay. It's a simple question. Does the subject have a belief in God? The answer is yes. That's theistic. Any other answer?
Right.
Atheist.
Right, which is a reaction to theism.
I said any other answer. So It's not necessarily a reaction to
Non-theism is a third option, though.
Is what?
Option.
What's the third
Non-theism is a
option?
third option.
Non-theism equals atheism.
No, I don't think
Yes.
so.
Yes.
I don't
Board of
think so.
Directors for American
Linguistically,
Atheists,
logically,
501c3.
it does.
Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. Atheism, non-theism, the same thing.
No, I don't think so.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what the A in atheism actually represents?
Space.
No.
No, A means not. So or
Not
without.
theism, so a reaction, a negation of a theistic God, right?
You mean the same
You
thing
have
as
theist,
non-theism?
you have not theist. There's more things that are not theist than that are theist. And there were always things that were never theist before there were things that were theist. Therefore, atheism precedes theism. But there's no reason to talk about it because we don't have to say that we don't believe in zombies until somebody brings up zombies. But we already didn't believe in zombies.
Yeah, I think Westernism is like, theism is a Western tradition, right? And they've colonized the world with their way of thinking. And I think that the science of the West is based on a reaction to theism, right? And thinking that the church is going to restrict them. And that's why people are into
Buddhist,
science
right?
fiction. Yeah,
Buddhist,
I
right?
studied Buddhism for a long time.
So
yeah.
Buddhism formed out of an offshoot of Hinduism. Hinduism, therefore, predates Buddhism. Buddhism is largely atheist and has been criticized by Buddhists for being atheist, but Hindus are not Western.
Right. Hinduism isn't even a Western word, I think. That's
you can't say that
that's
theism
Abrahamic.
is a Western tradition. The oldest religion in continuous practice is Hinduism. That's Eastern.
Right. And it's not theistic in the same way that I think, Buddhism isn't theistic.
Are there supernatural entities?
What's up?
Buddhism,
supernatural
it would be better to say that Buddhism isn't necessarily theistic because there are theistic Buddhists and there are atheist Buddhists.
Right, but I think it's not a reaction to Hinduism, I don't think. Do you think it's a reaction to Hinduism?
I think the way that Buddhism was formed out of Hinduism, yes, they were a new sect that was much more secular. You know, Siddhartha Gautama said that what difference does it make if the gods exist? They don't affect anything in our lives. You know, it doesn't matter whether the gods are real. It's irrelevant. So that's at least an agnostic position.
Yeah, I think he was critiquing karma. There was a sense of karma that when you were born in one caste, you were going to...
Are you still there, Elliot? Did we lose him, or is he just accidentally muted? Elliot, are you calling by phone or by web? Because you might have to tap your phone to keep.
He's gone.
Live. Oh, he's gone. Okay,
he's gone. I don't know what happened.
He had dropped before. It might be a connection issue.
Okay.
These things happen.
Yeah.
He wasn't solid like the rainbow.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to pick up these next three callers then, one in right. as they arrived, and we're going to start with Bart. Bart in the Netherlands.
Hey, hello. Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
And yes. What is your topic?
Oh well, my topic was I can argue that religion is good for mankind, but as I was in queue, I was thinking maybe you just agree, and then it's a short conversation.
Well, I don't think religion is necessarily good for mankind.
Yeah. Are there aspects of religion that we could call good? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Overall, religion is not. You know, religion is just lying to people to manipulate them, to coerce them and oppress them, and to yoke them for their not just their money, but for political power and for their labors, and to control everything about their lives. I'm sorry.
At its core, in the beginning when it was formed, or nowadays?
In the beginning, when it was formed, religion was just one person lying to another person.
I see. All right. Well,
And now it's loads of people lying to whole bunches of people.
yeah. No, I agree. I was more of the I was more thinking of religion is a good thing for mankind, because without religion there would be a lot of how do you say, same old. How do you say in English? Everything is the same without religion. Everybody would be the same mindset, I think.
Oh, it seems like we'd be pretty good at disagreeing even without religion.
Overall, I mean, you would have like 90% less cultures or something.
Oh, I think that's
Why?
completely false.
Yeah, why? That
Sorry?
makes no sense. If we had
because-
never had religion, if the first time the first liar met the first fool, and it just did, and somebody else stood up and broke up that fight or whatever, and if people everywhere requested that you don't tell me something is true until you can show the truth of it. Don't expect me to
Yeah.
believe anything just because you say so. Right? Show me what the facts are backing that up, or you're a liar. If they had that
I
attitude
agree,
everywhere, we would still have culture, different cultures all over the world. You don't have to believe in lies to have that.
Yeah, I would agree. Except that, as you know, you need when you have two separate things that combine, you have a new thing. So the more things you have, the more things can grow. So I think that the more things you have, the more things we will eventually have. Does that make sense?
So I
No
think
idea
I
what you're
follow
talking
what
about.
you're saying, but here's the thing. If you're talking about, if you have a variety of options, then you have things to explore and then to grow from. But here's the thing. If one of those things is always wrong, then it becomes baggage
it will be called
growth.
out. It will be called out, and it will be.
It hasn't. We've had plenty of false beliefs not called, but spread, sometimes even at gunpoint. Quite the opposite. I mean, I don't know if you realize this, but we're in the United States, and right now, the biggest liar and con man, perhaps in our history, is running the most powerful military and economy in the world. That's quite the opposite of culling.
Into the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping it would not get to politics, but
well, I'm just giving an example that we do not naturally necessarily cull bad ideas, especially if, as the old saying goes, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth even gets its boots on. That sort of saying is only more true now than it was when it was articulated, I think, first in the 19th century.
Yeah, but isn't that short-term thinking? Shouldn't you let it happen in order to learn from it?
Here's the thing.
What?
We've learned that lies are bad, and we keep lying. If anything, we need to learn to not let lies even get out of the, to again use another English phrase, not let the horse out of the barn.
I do not know what that is, but I can figure it out.
So basically, instead of just letting every terrible idea just run out and get as far as it can, and then we have to go out and try to catch up with it, it's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't let bad ideas get out there and spread wildly in the first place. We should say, hey, no, this is a bad idea. This is a lie. It should be the opposite of promoted. We should say, hey, we don't allow for lies. We don't allow for deceptions. We will say, hey, these are the sorts of things that should be actually reduced, not grown, and definitely not profited on. And that's the big thing, is plenty of lies are profitable to the liars, and use that power that they gain from it to just lie and steal and pillage more and more until you become a not so great person to be running, I don't know, a multi-trillion-dollar economy. Just saying.
Yeah, you said a lot of things. I agree with some. I think that you are assuming that someone is lying. You have to assume that someone is lying in order to say we shouldn't let it happen.
Well, here's the
You
thing:
kind
we
of
know
say,
people
And
make
we,
demonstrable lies.
in this case, there is no assumption. In this case, it's established fact. We got this guy's lies. He's lied 30,000 times in his previous run. There's all
but isn't
these
that the
different
problem with
statements that
politics
fact checkers
overall?
confirmed to be false. And so what does he do? He objects to the fact checkers.
Yeah, I this is the problem with politics, man. I follow you for so long, and every time you bring up politics, it's a trap, man. You shouldn't let it guide you. Just let it
You're
go.
saying
seeing
don't
the
let
death of my
politics.
nation.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the death
No,
of my nation.
everyone in politics lies. It doesn't matter if you choose a side. That's the problem. If you
Oh,
choose
so
one
it
side, you're
doesn't
bad for the
matter
other
what
side.
we do. Let's just roll over and let shit happen to us. Let's just let the terrible people kill everybody else and ruin the
Yeah.
economy. Let's just
Yeah.
let it happen.
Bart,
If you
that is
if
actually
you
the biggest lie
if
of
you
all. That
argue if you argue with
everyone in politics
then you
is the
choose a
same. That
side.
some people aren't more right than others. That everyone lies just as much. That is the biggest lie of all, and that is the sort of thing that the powerful use to get whatever they want. Because once they make everyone think it doesn't matter, that's when the only people left in the room are like, okay, we get to make all the decisions now because everyone else doesn't care.
And so I can
That's
say that,
true.
okay, so let's say everybody lied once. And let's say all these politicians, every politician, there is something they said that somebody else realized was not true and corrected that person. Okay. So Hillary Clinton, she got caught in a lie, and I wouldn't vote for her because of that. I was outraged because she told a lie. Donald Trump told
Sure.
30,000 lies, and they're all malicious.
Yeah.
Which is worse?
But no, it doesn't matter what is it's what
It
works
doesn't
for
matter.
you. And the
One
problem is
person
that
tells
you
one lie,
use it in an
or
argument. That's the problem.
when you use it in an
Do you-
argument, I don't understand.
No, you bring it up. You bring politics up. That's the thing.
Okay.
It's not that you are correct in what you were saying. I agree, but it's a trap. It brings you off topic. It gives you opinions about things that nobody really cares. I mean, tomorrow everybody has forgotten it.
Believe me, if my neighbors get kicked out of this country because of ICE agents, I'm gonna fucking care. I absolutely care
Sure.
when people's rights are being stomped on. So to say it doesn't matter, Bart, I'm sorry, but
No,
maybe for
not in
better,
that
you're not
sense.
following American
You bring
politics, but we are
no,
trying to actually mow
no,
down
you're
the rights of
overreacting now.
millions of people.
Yeah, you're a bit overreacting now because of course
No,
everyone cares if a relative is deported. I mean, what is it even it's not
You
even a
said
debate. But
you said that every time I brought up politics, that it caused me to have opinions that nobody cares about. That's false, right? I'm not saying that all of my opinions are important, but I can't think of one opinion I have that isn't shared or that doesn't matter that I've ever expressed politically.
well, when you talk about religion and it goes to politics, it seems like politics is taking over a bit.
it also
Politics
is
and
that they're
religion are
pretty darn entwined,
intertwined.
especially right now. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact of the
Yeah,
matter
You know, the
is,
country's being run by Christian nationalists, right?
Yeah, or they use Christianity to gain votes, but whatever.
And that's how we're losing our rights. Trump has already threatened in his previous term. He had already tried to undermine every single one of our rights in the First Amendment. He is coming after the First Amendment, and so are all of his minions.
But did he do that in the first term?
yeah,
He tried every single one of them. He tried to undermine every single one of those rights. But there were guidelines to stop him then. They don't exist anymore.
All right. Well, Good talk.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling. We've got 2 more calls. We'll go ahead and jump over to those. Thank you, Bart.
Yeah, see you around.
Before we hop into
Okay.
the next call, it's probably worth mentioning one thing, though. The reason I think it's worth talking about politics is because it actually does affect us. And one of the tools that politicians use for good or for ill is religion. And especially when it is used for ills, we need to be able to call it out. And if you say, well, that's just politics, no, that's a smokescreen to basically let people shit on you and say that it's raining.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump on this topic.
I agree, but it's hard to explain now. But the things you say are factual and they are correct. Yeah, but you have to understand from my perspective at least, politics is like a smokescreen. They throw up everything, and everyone has an opinion, and it doesn't matter. The things you say that are critical, those matter, of course. But 99% of what they say or they throw out there doesn't matter at all. And it takes up 99% of someone's talking point. That's what
that's
saying.
why I'm saying I talk about politics where it does matter, and I'm factual, or at least I try to be factual. So that's the difference.
Totally fine. That's totally fine. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not.
Honestly,
I'm saying you're correct, and I hope you. Oh well, then I can't explain better. Sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bart.
Yeah, no worries. See you later.
Right. Okay, so now there's a topic that I see. There's the choice of 2, and there's one that has more appeal to me. So I'm going to pick up that one. And we're talking with Roy.
Hello, Aron
Roy.
and Aaron. Hi.
How do you do?
Hello.
I'm fine. Great. Give me a second. I'm going to take you off speaker because I know you don't like you to be on speaker. 1 second. Okay. So, this is more for Aaron than it is for Aron. But Aron, I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. Aaron, I've been trying to call when you've been on for ages. And I think, one of the few atheists who believes that the universe came from nothing. And I think that this belief corresponds with reality, but I want to bounce this off an astrophysicist to make sure that it does. I think I have a pretty good layman's understanding of science, but I'm also going to clarify this that by saying that it's a belief, not a claim, because claiming it would mean that I'm claiming something that I can't falsify or that is non-falsifiable. The reason this makes sense is, well, as Hawking, for example, is quoted as saying literally that the universe created itself from nothing. And at first glance, this doesn't make sense, but after giving it some thought, it sort of does. And the reason it makes sense is that if I understand this correctly, both existence and causation require space-time. And prior to the universe coming into existence, space-time didn't exist. So whatever caused the universe had to be simultaneous to the universe's beginning. And even for a singularity to exist, if I understand this correctly, also requires time. So prior to the universe's existence, the singularity couldn't exist because the singularity, in essence, was the universe in its primordial state. Have I got this right so far?
So there is going to be the language issue of ever talking about before time began. Because anytime you ever say that, that sounds equivalent to being north of the North Pole. Is it even a coherent statement?
I agree with you, and that's exactly where I'm coming from. Before is a time referent, and therefore before time exists is a nonsensical concept to me. Also, we can also truthfully say, if I'm correct, that the universe both had a beginning and has existed forever, or has always existed, if we define forever as for all time. or if we define always as for all time. Am I correct about this?
You have to then, like I say, force those sorts of definitions, because when someone says forever, and especially if you say forever into the past, that means if for every second you go back, there was something, and there shouldn't then be some wall that there's no more seconds beyond. So I would be careful not to say that the universe has existed forever, but is finite in the past. That I think will just make people think you're incoherent, because you have a special definition of forever. As much as possible, I like to use the words that people use rather than force a redefinition and then tell everyone they're wrong because they didn't already know what my definition was.
Well, I would try to clarify this also, but using your example of, going back second by second, if we go to a point where there are no seconds, then we have hit a wall. But then we've then established that it has existed for all seconds, for all time. You see what I mean?
I see what you're saying, and so it is the case then that if we always require some sort of effect to be preceded by a cause, and if we go back to the very beginning, there can't possibly be a cause before the very first moment. I see the kind of thing you're going for. Conversely, though, it could also be the case that time doesn't have a beginning, and if we go back to the earliest moments of the observable universe and keep going back, there is still some sort of coherent timeline that would exist. There are physics models that still work with that. So at this point, all we can say is we don't know. Maybe there was an absolute first moment, and maybe time in some form or another goes back into the past infinitely. It is an open question, and anyone who says they know the answer, I wag my finger and say, oh, no, you don't.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's more of a belief than a claim. I just want to make sure that this belief at least has a correspondence with reality. And I'm aware that a multiverse would solve the problem of time having a beginning, or an oscillating Big Bang would also have
why would that be
the same effect? Well,
why would it?
Time
how would a multiverse have anything to do with the dilemma that you're talking about?
Well, if I understand the concept of multiverse correctly, and I trust that at least one of you will correct me if I'm wrong, multiverse involves an infinite series of universe popping up infinitely. Am I correct as far as I'm saying it?
Yes, but they're also popping up independently. So when you're talking about this universe, if there was a multiverse, it would be irrelevant. We're still talking about this universe.
Right. Okay. So I'm not sure I understand your criticism.
My understanding of the multiverse is that I always envisioned it this way. It's like a saucepan coming to a boil. You see all these little bubbles appearing at the bottom of the saucepan, and these are just individual universes popping into existence. And this is what it looks like anyway. We know that the bubbles in the bottom of the saucepan literally do not pop into existence. It just gives that it looks like that. It gives that illusion, right? But and so we know that the singularity is something similar. It's an illusion that looks like popping into existence out of nothing, but in fact it's not. Just like any of the bubbles in the saucepan are not. But we're only one of those bubbles. So it doesn't matter what all those other bubbles do. We're talking about what happens in this bubble. Did time slow down? Did time slow as we get back to the start of the Big Bang? Or was there a previous form of the universe, like collapsing and some kind of oscillation like that? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what those other bubbles are doing. We're only talking about this one.
All right. Well, this is why I brought up the possibility of an oscillating Big Bang, and I'm also trying not to conflate the Big Bang with the origin of the universe, because as far as I know, the Big Bang refers to the expansion of the universe, not necessarily the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So and we also know that effects can't precede causes, but does it violate any law of physics for causes and effects to occur simultaneously?
So there's actually a multitude of issues here. So first off, in our fundamental physics, there is no such thing as a cause, in that causes are not like the laws that we have in our physics. We have things about energy, we have like the four fundamental forces, but in its fundaments, we don't actually have causes that we have any sort of mathematical description of running things. So there's already that issue that we don't actually have a physics law of causality. That's already a problem. That
Okay,
that already makes
and I'm
things
trying not.
complicated.
I'm going to put a pin in that one because I'd like you to continue that one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember the other half of this because my brain is rotting, so I lost my own train of thought before you even said anything. So that's I ran the train off the tracks on my own.
Okay, well that's fine also, and I try to make sense at least once per day myself.
Yeah.
It was what you said that there in physics there's no principle of causality. Do I have the wording correct on that?
Yeah, so you're not going to have a physics book, and it's if you look up all the various laws of physics, you'll find things like law of conservation of energy, the second law of thermodynamics, things like that. But you're not going to open up a physics books and have a mathematically rigorous definition of what a cause is and what the causal law is. Oh, that was the other thing. You mentioned simultaneity. One of the big
Yes.
discoveries from Einstein's special theory of relativity is that you can't actually agree on things being simultaneous. That from your point of view, the order of events will be different than from another point of view on someone else in a different moving frame. In the most absurd case, from my point of view, if I was holding a pistol, I would pull the trigger and a bullet would come out. Somebody zipping by me at very close to the speed of light could potentially see a bullet come out and then me pull the trigger.
Right. I understand that, but in that case, the universe exists, as it does now, as opposed to at the beginning of the universe, where everything existed at the same place and at the same time. Do you see my problem with that?
Yeah, well, and like I say, though, the math also starts breaking down at that point because there's the whole divide by zero issue if you get to that sort of thing. And I'm just pointing out that at least within the universe, we can't even agree on what things are simultaneous, that it actually becomes reference frame dependent. So it's even harder to talk about causality in that sort of way, because Einstein just basically threw multiple wrenches into that concept. Nonetheless,
Okay.
even in the idea of a multiverse and universes popping out, that still seems to have some sort of sense that there's some sort of time, because we can talk about before our universe popped out and after our universe popped out. So there's still some sense of time even in that sort of thing. And then it still then begs the question, well, how far back does the bubbling of universes go? Does that go back infinitely into the past, or does it also have some sort of time equals zero moment? And that is, again, debated. No one knows.
Okay. But then I'm going to harken back to what Aron said with the analogy of the bubbles coming to existence in the bottom of the boiling water. Prior to the bubble existing, it didn't exist, and therefore it didn't, because
As
existence
a bubble.
requires time. Pardon me?
It didn't exist as a bubble.
It didn't exist as a bubble, right? But then to use that analogy for our universe didn't exist as a universe. Well, if it existed in some other form, then I can get that that time existed in whatever that form was. But did it exist in any form? Doesn't a universe definitionally have to exist?
Well, if you're saying the universe has to exist, then you definitely can't say the universe came from nothing, because you are saying it's logically necessary. A state of nothingness is just not even possible. So I think it then doesn't really make sense to talk about a universe coming from nothing. You would have to say there always was something, because the opposite state just wasn't even logically possible.
Okay. Then if it all right, but the thing is, existence requires time, and it requires space. If it doesn't, where did it exist, and when did it exist? If the universe,
As you said yourself,
a universe for it to exist.
If we could say then it always exists, one way you can make sure that the universe always exists is if time always in some form or another existed. Again, before the earliest hot state of the Big Bang in our observable universe, we don't know what the state is, and it could be that it's something from some other previous universe-like thing, and you can just keep going back indefinitely. Like I say, I don't know, and anyone who says that they know is being not truthful, because we just don't know.
Right. Well, I'm going along with that. That's why I'm stating it as a belief, not a claim. Hawking had this rather famous quote that he said that the universe had to create itself from nothing, and that's sort of the catalyst for this train of thought of mine.
Right, and there are models of the universe apparently tunneling from nothingness into our space-time. So those models definitely exist. Are they the correct models for what's going on? That's where I'm just saying I don't know. And it's because, like I say, the models exist. They seem to be consistent mathematically and with our physics knowledge that we have at this point. I have to say, hey, there are models of the universe popping out with no prior existence, and other universes that go back in time indefinitely. Which of them are true? I don't know. And because both models can explain the data, all I can say is, okay, we need to do something to figure out a way to distinguish these. And right now, I'm not clever enough to figure out a way to do that. So far, no one else has quite done the science needed to show that, though there are at least maybe a few hypothetical ways we could rule out certain approaches. But so far, we can't do it yet.
But bear with me. I've got some laryngitis going on, as you probably figured out. I hope my voice doesn't sound as obnoxious to you as it does to me. So basically, the upshot of the call is, am I not full of shit, partly full of shit, or completely full of shit?
You are more full of shit than the universe itself.
Okay, that's pretty full of shit, I think. Right. Because I think
the universe has given us a lot of shit to work with. There's a lot of shit, but sometimes it takes a little bit of shit to grow something. The universe gave us a lot to work with, and there's a lot of shit to figure out. All I can say is we all need to get a shovel and start digging.
Okay. Do you have time for another question, or do you need to move on?
Well, we've had this one guy on hold for quite a long time, but let's do it quickly if we can.
Okay, and I'll leave it to you to decide if you can do it quickly. I saw a simulation of the universe's expansion that showed that at some point we will not be able to observe light from other parts of the universe. And it occurred to me, how do we know that we're not already there?
So
because we can observe light from
specifically, parts of the universe won't be able to observe each other, but you'll still have this bubble of things internal to which you can observe. And whether you're in the Milky Way, whether you're in Andromeda, whether you're in some other galaxy we see 10 billion light years away, it will have its own bubble of everything that's within its bubble of things it can see. And it'll be slightly different than ours. And the big limiting factor is, well, there's a couple limiting factors. One is the speed of light itself. and the speed of the expansion of the universe. So the speed of light factor, if there's stuff that's so far away that the light hasn't had enough time to reach us, that's one thing. But there's also parts of the universe that are moving away from us faster than the speed of light, which means
Right, I'm
they will
aware of that.
never.
So
Yeah. So, but that
exactly.
distance that we have to go, if you are from the Andromeda Galaxy, the distance you measure to that point is different than here in the Milky Way. It's different than if you're in the Great Attractor, whatever, 100 million light years away, etc. From each point that you can basically draw a circle and say this is the maximum extent that you will be able to see things. And every other part of the universe will have its own circle of what's within view.
Right. So if we are going to have our own bubbles of observability, how do we know that we're not all that the universe itself is a bubble of observability? How do we know that we're not already in one of these bubbles of university that is distinct from other bubbles?
We definitely are in that bubble because we can't see infinitely far back. But the more important thing is, it sounds more like you might be having a question of the geometry of the entire universe, or I should say observable universe itself. And this goes back to general relativity, and we can explain the geometry as either flat, spherical, or hyperbolic. And in those sorts of setups, you're basically talking about the fate of the universe. If the universe is quote unquote spherical, and we're talking spherical in a higher dimensional plane, this means that actually it has so much matter that it can collapse itself back down. And that would also tell you that the universe would eventually collapse back down on itself. And a universe that's either flat or hyperbolic will never collapse back in on itself. And our best measurements right now suggest that our universe's geometry is flat, which basically means it has the exact same amount of matter energy it would need to balance out the gravitational force of it, like that it was thrown out with and balanced out, I should say. Let me step back. You can imagine the swiftness that the universe was shot out early on and how much gravitational force there is to try to slow it down and reverse it. Those two are basically perfectly balanced out so that the universe can expand indefinitely. And that seems to be the shape of our universe. And we're able to measure that in a few different sorts of ways. The most important measurements ultimately come from very careful and statistical measures of the cosmic microwave background, that the various shapes of features in that sort of background allow us to test different models of the geometry of the universe. And right now, it seems to be extremely close to perfectly flat. So, yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I know there's a delay. If I understand correctly, the answer to my question is whether we're in our own distinct observable bubble of the universe that is so far away from other parts of the universe that we will never be able to observe them. And the answer, if I answer correctly, is that we might be.
Almost certainly, because there is an observational limit. There is a distance as far as you can go that, based on the expansion of the universe, that part of the universe is then expanding so fast away from us, we will never be able to observe beyond it. And I think that's something like, I might be saying the numbers wrong, but the number popping into my head is 96 billion light years. But I feel like I need to triple check that before I say it confidently.
Great. I'm pleased to be able to say that I remember almost everything from my Astronomy 101 classes. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Good night. All right, so we got one more caller. And David in Utah, you are on the line.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Good evening. And what is your topic?
What I wanted to talk about was in my discussions with theists, it always gets around to heaven and hell. And when I discuss what my thoughts are on it, I really can't think of the word, like freak out people by it. But basically what it is I'm an atheist, but if there was a heaven and hell, and if I didn't go just straight to hell and went to heaven, I would ask God questions and whatnot. And by their answers, I would more than likely just go to the edge of heaven and jump off into hell. And that alone freaks theists out. But then they say, well, you're going to be tortured and whatnot. And I say, well, my thoughts on hell are you are only put on the rack unless you're willing to step off and put someone else on the rack and torture them. And I shocked them because I wouldn't get on the rack at all. I would grab the whip, throw one of them on it, and start torturing them.
What? Okay, so when I was a kid, I remember being like 12 and trying to read the Bible and being so upset that the Bible was not the Word of God, that I was led to believe that it was. I mean, you don't have to get very far into it to realize, no, this is not the Word of God. This is not the Word of God. This is not the word of supreme intelligence. These are the words of primitive, superstitious savages trying to justify their inhumanity against their neighbors through arguments from authority. And so I realized that the way that God is being cast is such an evil character that I would want nothing to do with this God. So at 12 years old, I remember giving the prayer, just like it says, I think, in Matthew 6, where, you pray in the privacy of your own room. You don't pray out in public like the hypocrites do. And so I prayed to God that he explain himself. This horror and stupidity in the Bible, that God, the Bible paints God as an idiot, as a narcissistic asshole who's not very smart, but he's also strangely insecure. How can you be God and be this fucking insecure that you need everybody to praise you all the time, and be so worried about providing any slight, right, to this super weak ego of God's? And I asked if God either explain the kind of horror and atrocity that is being attributed to the Bible, or convince me that the Bible got him all wrong, that the Bible's not even talking about him. And I think that prayer was answered, because all my life after that, I've seen only evidence that the people who wrote the Bible were not actually, writing down God's words. These are the words of men who don't know what they're talking about. But when I issued that prayer, it was an ultimatum. And I said that if he did neither, if God neither accounted for this, if he didn't explain this, just all this horror that's being lumped in his name, or the alternate, he showed me that the Bible isn't accurate at all. If he did neither of these things, then he could not have my soul. I was fully aware that was damning myself to hell, but that was the option. And I think I made a very adult decision in that. But especially for, despite the fact that it takes, I think, a childlike mentality to still believe in hell. I think by the time I was 13, I realized hell didn't exist anymore. That was one of the first things I let go of in my pursuit of religious understanding. But I don't understand I can fully understand your idea of wanting to leave heaven, but I don't understand your idea of wanting to torture people in hell.
It's not that I necessarily want to. It's that they ask why I would jump into hell because I would be tortured. And that's when I say that I don't believe that I would be, because of my willingness to throw somebody else on them and torture them. And I do understand. I have been in therapy for quite a long time. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm
David,
afraid
just
we've
make
got
sure
the
I
point
understand. Yeah, just make sure I understand. Are you saying that if you were in hell, the reason you would be tortured is that you would basically throw other people, so to speak, under the bus so you can escape?
No. Well, not necessarily. It's like being tortured in hell is one thing. but then it would be like a step up as something is evil, I guess, to put someone else on them and be willing to torture them. Does that clarify it a little bit more?
So I guess I'm trying to understand and also interpret you in the most charitable light possible, because I want to make sure that you're not saying you would go to hell and suffer less because you would have other people suffer more. Tell me if I'm interpreting you correctly. Those who are in heaven because someone else had to go to hell in their stead. That basically the reason the heavenly people can be there is somebody else has to go suffer in hell. Is that even close to an approximation of what you're saying?
No, I wouldn't say that. Because someone gets into hell not necessarily because someone goes to hell, or I didn't say that. Get into heaven because someone goes to hell. It's more that because like you would still be tortured in hell even if you chose to get off the rack and throw somebody else on it and torture them. I guess I'm not necessarily certain how to clarify it more. I apologize.
So maybe to help clarify, because I mean, we're talking about hell, and that means we get to make up what hell is. We get to make up our own mythology since it's not real. And different Christians will tell you different things about what hell is. Some of them is the devil runs the place and runs it as an evil empire to maximize suffering there. And so because the devil is powerful, make sure that everyone down there is just in constant, permanent agony because he's actively torturing you. That's one version of hell. But some Christians will say, well, hell is just separation from God. And so just because you're away from God, that's why it will feel like torture. In that latter one, I would say, well, apparently right now I'm separate from God and doing just fine. And if I'm down there and all my friends are down there, it's just like, all right, let's make coffee and keep going. It's warm.
Heaven for the climate, hell for the company.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I say, it depends on which mythology of hell you're talking about. If it's the one where the devil runs the place and is there and is nearly omnipotent in guaranteeing that you suffer, then there's nothing you can do about it. If hell is what we make of it, then you have the option of making hell a little bit closer to paradise.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not honestly sure where this would lie in between them, though, necessarily, or on either side.
Like I say, we get to make shit up since it's mythology. So let's just come up with better myths.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I need to think about it more. This is why I wanted to talk to call in and talk to you guys, because like the theists I talk to get stuck on that, and then the conversation stalls.
Yeah.
And when you say theists, you are in Utah, so are we talking Mormons?
Sometimes, but I am on Xbox, so I talk to everybody all over the country.
Okay. I thought it was interesting that Mormons don't really have the hell belief the way that evangelicals or most other Christians do. And yes, I include Mormons with Christians because I was raised by Mormons. And they all believed that they were Christian.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not. I guess like I said, I think I need to do more research on this to kind of solidify this thought that I have, I guess.
Well, at least usually I would think that unless you fundamentally change with my brain, if I were in heaven and knowing that there were people in hell suffering infinitely, I could not possibly find joy in that world, knowing that millions, if not billions of people are suffering infinitely forever. That would feel like, at least internally, torture. And the idea that that is the fundamental structure of the universe just sounds so abhorrently evil that I would definitely look at the guy running the show and think, I can't say apparently because otherwise it'd be tossed in hell, but think, this is the system you made and you are the good guy? I don't think so.
That was another aspect of my prayer when I was 12. Part of that was when I asked God, can't I just die and, all the way and be dead?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, though, the idea of hell as this place of, and I mean, the idea of hell as this place of torture was actually turned pretty much into torture porn in like the medieval period, where the various philosophers and theologians were talking about how much pleasure there would be to view the suffering of people in hell. And that just shows how absolutely twisted that view of the afterlife is and just what it does to people's minds, where they enjoy the idea that, oh, you're a sinner, therefore I'm going to enjoy watching you burn. And that just seems so repugnant to my modern atheistic sensibilities. I don't want people to be tortured. I'm such a softie.
Yeah, on that note, I've thought of that, and I might think that if you were if you thought you were in heaven and looking down at people getting tortured and got glee out of that or whatnot, you might think that you might be in hell and just like a smokescreen of heaven. Because to think like that, you kind of have to be somewhat evil. Am I wrong in
You'd
thinking
have to
that?
It definitely seems sadistic, though you also remind me of a different hell, because we're talking different mythologies. Have you ever watched any of the original run of The Twilight Zone?
Are we going to talk about
a
Anthony
few of them
Fremont again?
long ago.
Aron, you might know the episode better than me, it sounds like.
The Good Life? Yep.
Hmm.
So everybody in this town of Peaksville, Illinois, is trapped in a house with this little boy who's like 5 years old and has godlike powers. And he can read your mind. And so there's no way to escape. There's no way to get out. You're stuck in this house with this little boy, and you better be thinking nice thoughts. And you better praise him every time he does something horrible to you or to your friends, whatever, your wife, whatever. You better praise him because he doesn't like bad thoughts. He will cause more horrible shit to happen if you don't praise him.
I was actually thinking a different episode.
Okay.
Oh no, different episode, because that's that's what heaven is actually like, according to some versions of the myth. This was where a con man burglar guy gets killed, wakes up, and he thinks he's in heaven. And he goes to the casino in heaven, and he gets jackpot instantly. Woohoo! And he realizes, wait, I'm always getting jackpot. And it's like, hey, all the thrill and everything that I'm used to is completely gone. It's like, isn't this supposed to be heaven? It's like, why do you think you're in heaven? That version of hell. It's like all of your, base desires are now turned against you because of, well, how nasty you were, and everything that gave your nastiness joy is now sucked dry. That's at least a more clever hell than the infinite torture forever version that medieval Christianity provided.
Yeah. So entirely childlike. And such as religion deals a lot with the false dichotomies. Everything's black or white, good or evil, either with us or against us. But you're either going to experience this infinite orgasmic bliss eternally, or it's got to be the most merciless kind of torture porn imaginable being visited on you forever and ever and ever. Relentlessly. There's no consideration of nuance. There's no alternate means. There's no, as you say, there's if this guy in this Twilight Zone episode, if it was me, obviously it wouldn't have been a problem. Okay, so I win the jackpot a few times. I'm able to keep myself, in my hotel room or whatever it is that I need. Okay, fine. And now I'm going to go try to improve myself somewhat other way. Maybe go read and learn something. But with the Christian concept of hell and damnation, there's no rehabilitation. In heaven either, there's no way to improve yourself. There's no reason to exist in heaven. And that would be a problem because there's no way to make it end. There's no way to get out of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you guys for taking my call. I hope it wasn't too extreme or whatnot.
Oh, we've had much more extreme even this evening.
But yeah,
right.
Thank you again, and I'll let you guys go. Have a good evening.
Thank you much.
Good night.
Okay, so Aron, how much more of the show are we doing right now?
So, well,
We got
it
another
seems like
half-
we're out of calls. Well,
Yeah.
unless I'm mistaken, I don't think we have any more calls, but we do have super chats, and it's probably worth announcing the other shows here on the line. We said that earlier, but we probably want to repeat what else our dear viewers can find if they stick around on this wonderful YouTube channel.
Okay, well, as we say, tomorrow, what is it, Tuesday, we have Chewed Gum, Alicia Lube, and Eve Was Framed. Wednesdays is the Hang Up Show. That's at 6 p.m. By the way, Chewed Gum and the Hang Up shows are both 6 p.m. Central Time. And then Thursday is the Transatlantic Call-In Show, which is at 2 p.m., throws everybody off. And then Sunday is the Sunday Show with Matt Dillahunty. The week from today is Forrest Valkai and Roxanne on SkepTalk at 6 p.m. Well, the Sunday show is at 2 p.m., I should have said. Then this show, of course, 6 p.m. Then Chewed Gum next week again, and so on. Nobody can see
Please
this,
stay for
but
the
I
and
have,
so on.
yeah, I have this snake in my hand, and I have this cat who desperately wants to be in my lap. I'm trying to.
Do the two actually mix well?
Yeah.
I have a cat,
Anyway.
but I've never had a snake at the same time.
Yeah, today was 81 degrees. February 3rd, 81 degrees, which I think is 21. Was it 27? 27 Celsius, I think. 27 or 28.
You said 87
Little
Fahrenheit?
odd. Yeah, 80 degrees Fahrenheit is, I think, 21. Oh, excuse me, 27. Is it 27? I think it's 27.
Yeah, just about 27. I just
Yeah.
checked the calculator because I wouldn't guess otherwise.
Yeah, strange for early February, for the first week of February. This is when things are supposed to be cold, but yeah. So I took my false water cobra for a walk in the park.
That is not the thing I would do here in Boston.
All right. Well, I guess I'm an old guy. I had to mention the weather.
Mm.
It was just a thing. All right. So we finally got super chats. $5 from Zachary Herink. Dr. Aron, what is the worst fundamental force of physics? Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming there's a punchline, but I don't know how they're going to deliver that punchline.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a pun, I'm not getting it, but I'm going to have to say the weak nuclear force. It's kind of it's a force that's involved in like nuclear decay. I mean, that's like what it's good for.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
next one?
sure. Yeah, I got the next one. All right, we got $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Steve simulation theory. If I get some vocabulary words and names memorized and ramble enough, I can create a simulation of evidentiary theory. In some ways, isn't that what a large language model is? Just give it a huge amount of vocabulary and rambling, stir it enough until it eventually turns into coherent text, and we call it Chat GPT.
Yeah. You know what I love about
in a real sense,
ChatGPT
that's how
is how people. How people
ahead.
think that they can convince they can get Chat GPT to say things like God exists, for example, and they think that that's a valid argument for God.
Yeah.
$5 from Zachary Herring, who says, "Oops, autocorrect was too eager, but I guess either of you can answer the question."
Yeah, I'm going to just say weak nuclear force because it's busting my atoms.
Read this one then.
Yeah, right. We got $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. I sense that a lot of the First Amendment defenders are there because they're offended by other people expecting them to think at all, ever. Just me?
I am confused at that. As a
let's put it this
First
way.
Amendment defender myself, I am never offended that somebody wants me to think.
Notice the scare quotes when it comes to those First Amendment defenders. And if I can give an example that I literally just read today, apparently Elon Musk is threatening anyone on Twitter, or X as he prefers it, anyone using their message board on X to badmouth the president will get banned. All the lefties should go to Threads and Blue Sky. So remember, Elon Musk said, I'm buying Twitter to defend free speech and saying anyone who disagrees with this administration is off. So, yeah, that's a First Amendment defender with extra scary quotes.
I got you. $20 from Bran. Hey guys, I'm a trans man. Please tell me things will get better. I know it will probably get bad and worse before, but at some point, will it get better? I'm gonna push it over to you, Aaron.
Let's put it this way. You are right that I think things are going to get worse before they get better, but let's put it this way. Look at where gay rights were in the 60s versus now. And it's clear that there has been progress on that front, and the chances of completely reverting back, I think, are too minimal. It took a long time for people to stop saying, oh, gay people are icky, and then realizing, oh no, gay people are my brothers, sisters, my son or daughter, my neighbors, and eventually enough people got there that it's now a weird minority of people, even amongst Christians that are anti-gay. And I think in the long term, something like that will happen with transgender folks. So it's not happening tomorrow. In 10 years, are things going to be better? I don't want to claim anything, but I'm talking in the long term, we can and will make progress. It's just going to take a huge amount of effort, especially by all the cis people standing up and saying, hey, stop treating people like shit.
Yeah. €10 from Yordim. I hope I said that right. If you pray 1,000 times to a god for a pot of gold and every single time you do it, you get one, is that evidence for a god existing or merely evidence that praying works without knowing why? The latter. If you can do something reliable and show that you worked, you've at least shown that magic exists. That doesn't necessarily speak to a god.
By the way, when you find that pot of gold, the line gets a cut. All right. $10 from Jamie M, or is it Jaime M? I'm always terrible with pronunciations. Okay.
I think that's Jamie because there's no I after the A.
Okay, that's a good call. Thank you. So, Jamie M, for Aron's eye roll during the Buddhist call, priceless.
Thank you for that. $10 from Jason Jones. Oh hi d die d die d die d I d die. Maybe there's a song reference in there I'm not getting. There was once a bastard who was orange and big and fascist. Every time he showered, he forgot where his ass was. Then we elected him. Help us. Yeah.
You know, could we have more fun limericks? Oh. You know, one of these days, I ought to go to Ireland specifically so I can go to the town of Limerick.
Have you been?
I've been to Ireland once. I've been to Dublin, but not beyond that, unfortunately. My mother has, though.
Okay.
In fact, I think my mother said that she actually went to a town of our namesake, that there's an Adair in Ireland with a slightly different spelling. So, need to go there, drink
I've been to
Guinness.
Northern Ireland a couple of times. It is quite lovely. All right, so $10 from Anti-Religion Cunt. I'm a science-loving anti-theist, and I've encountered adults who believe that you can leave your body and jump into others. Am I the only one that has encountered them? No, I was one of those people once upon a time in my youth. I was one of those people. I'm sorry to say.
Yep. We've even without religion, organized religion, we can still find plenty of other crazy things to believe.
Yeah.
All right, we got 50 Norwegian
kroner. Yes.
Okay, my guessing is better than I expected. I'm horrible with acronyms, so I'm glad I got that. But nonetheless, 50 Norwegian kroners from Arsenic, 1987. Trump is scarily analogous to the God of the Bible. Hashtag hell for the company. Well,
yeah, I'll agree with that.
Least...
Trump is just as dumb as the Old Testament deity. And he's obviously narcissistic. He's all about retribution and revenge. He's completely insecure. He wants everybody to be a sycophant and kiss his ass. And that's it. So, yeah, I fully get the analogy.
And a rapist.
However, it's also a bit disanalogous because I'm pretty sure if God exists, he has read the Bible. This one's you.
Are you reading this one or me?
You.
Okay, well, $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. I don't know if free will is real, but I act like it is. And what other choice do I have? Great show, guys. Thank you for helping us through this fresh hell. Thank you very much, Monkey and Typewriter. Oh, look at you.
Now we got $5 from JMR, not the Bible, Jason. Are there any lazier or self-owning positions than theism? You have to just give up on learning, right? There is a lot to learn.
That would be in my opinion.
There are many things about theism that there is to learn. I mean, theology books are not short. But on the other hand, is it as useful as knowing about the different forms of astrology?
Well, now think about it. Martin Luther actually said that. Was it Martin Luther? I think. Hold on. Let me think of the quote. We want to know nothing. When we come to know the Word of God or whatever, we want to know nothing else. Something along those lines. We have no more interest in learning, and that was Martin Luther. I'm not getting the quote right, but he said something very similar to that.
Mm.
We must put reason. We must put out of our minds a wish to know nothing but the Word of God.
All right. I'll take this one. So we got $5 from Kaleidoscope Green. Just wanted to support the show. If you can make a donation to your local PBS. PBS for please buy me some more. All right. That looks to be the end of our supers.
All right. Well, as always, it's been good to do a show with you. I like when they can take the physics, the astronomy, and the philosophy questions and dump them on you, and I can just take a nap.
Well, I should say they probably shouldn't throw so many philosophy questions at me. That is not my area of expertise. I just I know a few words, and that's all I'm going to claim for my knowledge.
Okay, well, very good.
All
right, so do we say goodnight, Gracie? Oh, look at you.
I would go get my cat, but he doesn't like being picked up.
Yeah.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Please donate so I don't have to do more bad dancing. No, I'm going to bad dance no matter what. Calling.